I'm going to start with a quick story about a Fisher-Price tape recorder. My dad bought one of these for my brother and I when I was a kid. It has 4 big C-size batteries in it, and it comes with a tape with 3 synthesizer kid songs on them. Dad regretted that purchase instantly. So he flipped the tape over and he recorded. He was going through NASA Jazz phase, so he put some weather report on there. I think Birdlander, remember that one. But he got really tired of that too. So he put a headphone socket into it right away. If you don't like how something works, change it. And that's a really powerful lesson for an 8-year-old to pick up. Now, you think your dad can do anything, but it's really something to see him actually change how something works. So let's talk about how we make things for a moment. We used to make things one at a time. And the skills you'd use to make things industrially would be pretty much the exact same skills you would use to make things at home, in your own shop, at high school. The tools were simple. Occasionally, how you'd use them would be complex, and everything was handmade one at a time. And this was pretty much well into the 60s. So the old way, simple tools, complex operations, occasionally human operators. So how do we make things now? If you look at the tools in old factory photographs, they're pretty comparable to what you'd buy at a department store. Try finding these at Canadian Tire. We've moved into an era where we have custom-built tools for just about everything. They're complex tools that perform simple operations. So the difficulty with these really complex tools is that they're expensive and they can really only do one thing. So there's not much of a secondary market for it. And when these automated tools started to come into play, they really changed the market. There's not really a secondary market for tools like there used to be. So we saw this split between consumer tools that you can buy at Sears, Home Depot, whatever, and professional level tools. So let's talk about building robot brains for a moment. And why robot brains? Because my particular hobby is building robots. If you look at electronic circuits in the 70s, they were fairly complex. It took you hundreds of connections. By the 80s, thousands. By the 90s, tens of thousands. By the 90s, you couldn't build anything by hand. But by the 2000s, we're down to the point where you can do it with a single chip and dozens of connections. So we're actually, this is a computer that's probably about as powerful as Owen Goss's Commodore 64 that was up on the screen a while back. This costs $30. You can throw it into something and it's great. So it's not all bad. We have had some advances. We can't get them at Canadian Tire just yet, but it's close, really. Digital electronics is easier than it's ever been before. And it's kind of it hasn't really diverged as a hobby too far from how they do it industrially. So the people that are working in this professionally and us amateurs, we're all trying to solve the same problems, which is always kind of interesting to see. So the other thing that's really contributed to hackerspaces is urbanization. So over the last 100 years, Canadians have really moved into cities. We don't have garages, we don't have backyards where we can blow things up, and actually, in Guelph, we really don't have garages. There's actually a law against that. So hobby space is kind of tough to come by, especially when you want great big machine tools. So if you have a hobby like electronics or robotics, if you just want to make stuff, sometimes it's really tough to find people that are interested in making the same thing. And like Angela said earlier, the internet is a great organizer. It actually brings all of this together. So where are we? New tools are amazingly effective, but still expensive. Complex projects are easier than ever, but that can be intimidating if you don't have somebody to help you into the swing of things. Urbanization means we can't all have our own garage shop, and internet means that we can organize fairly easily. So let's bring this back to mutability, the idea that the universe is changeable. So if it doesn't work the way you want, change the way it works. And if nothing does what you want, make something that does. And this is kind of where Diode came in. We all wanted our big shop. So we got together and we made ourselves a hackerspace, which are basically community workshops. They're a common place to invest in tools. There's about 10 hackerspaces in Ontario. Diode's right here in Guelph. Here's our shop. We've got more stuff in there now. This is an old photo. It's still about the same degree of low-grade chaos. It's a fact of life, unfortunately. So what does a hackerspace have to offer? We've got tools, we've got space, but we've got community. And it's tough sometimes to actually take on some of these projects as an amateur. It's not what we do at Diode is nothing that any of us do professionally. It's something where we go to actually build stuff that we wouldn't normally build. Things like kegerators, robots, paper rocket launchers, furniture. There's nothing wrong with being an amateur. We might have gotten through all of these independently, but the fact that we can get together and do them together and compare notes with each other is fantastic. So get excited, make things, and find people that you can make things with.